My name is Stanley L Schwartz. I live in Great Neck, Long Island. Before Pearl Harbor, I graduated from NYU in June 1941. I was a member of the Reserve Officer Training Corps, and I graduated and was sworn in as a second lieutenant in the reserves. I wound up in early '44 being called out of my division at that time. I think it was the 100th, and went over to England. I was stationed in England for a short while until early July. I was shipped to Omaha Beach. In August, I joined the division with which I fought. It was the 121st Infantry Division. I joined them in Brittany. After we completed wrapping up the Brittany campaign, our battalion was assigned the job of train guards to make sure that the supplies we were shipping east got to the lines instead of being ripped off on the way in. It was a great assignment, from after fairly heavy combat. Then from there, my outfit went into Luxembourg, where we were in the lines again, separating our forces from the German forces. And while we were in Luxembourg, we heard a lot of rumors about vicious fighting north of us in what came to be known as the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest. After we were in Luxembourg for a relatively short while, we were advised that we were going to be sent up into the forest to replace a regiment that had been badly chewed up. I remember we trucked for about 17, 18 hours. I had been advised that I was going to lead the 1st platoon in the first attack, and the area that we were going to attack had probably 3 lines of dugouts and 4 machine gun nests between each of them. It was a nasty place. We were supposed to kick off at about 9:30 in the morning, after hopefully an hour or so of relatively heavy artillery preparation. It was a very uncomfortable position. My platoon, which was now back up to full strength, was about half replacement soldiers who had not done any combat fighting. But I had half a platoon who had done quite a bit. I spent some time during the night trying to get some sleep unsuccessfully, thinking of how I was going to attack the position as had been described to us. And I couldn't think of a good way of doing it. And around about 5 o'clock in the morning, I contacted my company commander, First Lieutenant Jack Melton, and I told him that I didn't like the battle plan, and if it was okay with him and Major Hurtgen, the battalion commander, I would like to jump off early, see how far I could get. And Melton went back to tell this to Hurtgen, who had said, if Schwartz wants to jump off, don't stop him. And now I was joined by an enlisted man from the 3rd platoon named John Minik. Minik was the best fighting soldier we'd had in the outfit. He asked Melton, the company commander, whether he could join Schwartz, because whom he heard was going to jump off in an early night attack. Minik carried a Tommy gun, as did a soldier I had in my platoon called Jesse Stevens. We kicked off into the Hurtgen Forest, into the area that was cleared area where the Germans had their machine guns sighted, what they call their field of fire. What I did was, I had had some success with flanking tactics in Brittany, and I thought I'd try it again. So instead of organizing my men in a front to attack forward and the idea being to spread their fire, I put everybody on the right flank, our right flank, and we went up in a column. I simply led the whole platoon in a column, the Minik on one side of me and Jesse Stevens on the other. And we went up quietly and as quickly as I could. I got maybe 300 yards with no opposition. Didn't see a thing, didn't see any wire, which I guess was to our left, and found no mines at that point. And suddenly, I'm at the dugouts. And the machine gun on our right front, and mind you, by this time we're almost parallel with them. So they really couldn't hit us. And I threw hand grenades into the backs of the machine gun nests and the dugouts running down to our left. And all the Germans that came out, that were pulling out of the dugouts, anybody that had a weapon, Minik killed. He was a fighting machine. And all the Germans came out and surrendered. Probably very, very happily to do so, because they've been fighting in the Hurtgen forest for some months. And by that time, Hayes and the rest of the platoon had come up, and I decided I'd try to call down some artillery, since I had been a cannon company officer. I knew how to do that. And I asked my men to start to get into position so that I could see what we were shooting at. And as we started to move, things started to explode, because I was in a mined area, had no idea that the Germans would have mines that far behind their lines. And we hadn't hit anything when we first went in. And I remember the first explosion, mine went off, and it killed John Minik and Trusty. And then another mine went off, and I had a young Brooklyn boy named Spagnola with me, and another Brooklyn man named Joe Newberger, whom I brought up, veterans. And Spag got an abdominal wound, and Newberger got an arm. And I had my platoon medic with me. I never went any place I could without my medic. And Manny Ferris, a little Portuguese man. And Ferris wasn't hit. I tried to move to get to Spagnola to help him, and I hit a mine, and I got both legs pretty well mangled. And so in about 14 seconds, all my little group had been hit except Ferris. Anyway, I got out, went through the hospital chain, and that was the end of my combat experience. I was 24 years old. There's a quotation from our current president that I think is very apropos. And he says, he's not opposed to all wars, just dumb wars. Our war wasn't a dumb war, but it was a necessary war. It's not something that, by and large, young men should go through unless they absolutely have to.